I mean, you have 50 plus flavors, right? I mean, including, of course, the classic hits like caramel and cheese and whatnot, but also with that, things like gold, for example.
So it was turning very, very competitive, and people were only talking about prices. Nobody would talk about value. Nobody would talk about service.
Horeca, where you're, you're selling kitchen equipment, then to sort of a B2B setup, and then to D2C right now.
Absolutely.
People spend one lifetime trying to manage one, right? You've done two in this last 30 years or so.
80% of sale comes from those typical 20% of the product. And the balance 20% of the sale comes from the 80% of the product.
Thought experiment, right? I mean, if you were a young person right now, let's say coming out of college, 22, 23, and you had to start a business, what sector would you start a business in?
I have a list of 10 ideas right now, which I can shoot right now and create companies, honestly speaking.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Startup Operator Podcast. I'm Roshan Karyappa. My guest today is Vikas Suri, who is also known as the Popcorn Man of India. You might have seen him on Shark Tank, where he landed a deal with Shark Namita. He is an experienced person, a veteran in the space, and is now embarking on this new journey of building a D2C brand. I speak to him about his pivot from Horeca to CPG to D2C, some of the learnings he's had along the way. How does he manage brand perception? How does he deal with SKUs and competition and so on and so forth? This was a nice, interesting, concise conversation with plenty of insights in here that could be relevant for up-and-coming entrepreneurs. So if you are even mildly curious about, how the kernel sort of crumbles, so to speak, well, this is the conversation for you. Let's get started. Hello, sir. Thank you so much for making the time. And I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. My pleasure, actually.
Awesome. So I think like most people, I discovered you on Shark Tank. Right, it was a very interesting pitch, and I'm sure the experience was even more interesting.
Fabulous.
So I guess that's a good place for us to start. What was your Shark Tank experience like?
It was fabulous, honestly. The whole experience was so good that I never expected. The entire crew was so warm. The hospitality was so good. The people were so caring. So when we went into Mumbai, they put us in a hotel, and we were staying there for 2-3 days, and they were picking us and dropping us back every morning and night. Great food. People were fabulous, of course, as I said. And they trained us through the entire journey that how the Shark Tank experience is going to be inside, how the sharks are going to be talking to you, and what kind of questions they would be throwing at you. So how do you need to handle them? So it was fabulous, actually. Really good, yeah.
So how many days was it prior to shooting?
So we were there for 4 days.
Okay.
4 days, yeah.
Okay. Nice. And you ended up signing a deal with Namita as well, right? So
Yes.
anything about the individual sharks as such? I mean, any thoughts on?
No, every shark brings their own experience. Every shark is a fabulous person. They have immense amount of knowledge about the businesses, which are there in the industries today. We were very happy to sign up with Namita because Namita actually resonated with the kind of product we offer, and she really loved it. I believe she had used that kind of a product or a similar product range somewhere in the US. So she immediately connected and she offered us a deal. I think, to be honest, very much in the beginning. And we said, great. And that was nice, yeah.
Yeah, I think she really got your product, right, before anyone else did, I suppose. The thing also is that, you're not an upstart, right, in this industry. I mean, you've been a founder, operator for about 30 years now, right? So I'd love to understand a bit about your background and experience before this, right? So you've, you started Kitchnrama, right, where if I understand correctly, you were supplying kitchen equipment to restaurant businesses and so on. So what was that experience like?
So, we've been in the industry for almost 35 years, and, I started Kitchnrama as a company where we were providing commercial kitchen equipments to the hospitality industry. So basically hotel, restaurants, catering companies, fast food and food courts, etc. Also convenience stores. And while we were doing so, we realized that industry is turning very, very competitive, and we were looking for a niche. And that is a time when multiplexes were just starting up. And incidentally, PVR was one of the first ones to, start up. And we were very, very happy and lucky that we had initially signed up with them in terms of as a supplier of the equipment. We were identified, and when we started supplying them, and they were the first people to start multiplexes in India. They became iconic, they became the leaders, and we had nothing to look back, because anybody and everybody who wanted to open up a multiplex was first at PVR, and then going somewhere else, then finding architects, and then finding other people. And since we were already there, their questions were like, oh, where did you buy this from? Where did you buy this from? Where did you buy this from? And the people connected us with those investors or entrepreneurs, and no looking back. And here we are.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think, I want to address the fact that, you realized that there was increasing competition in your line of business and you decided to pivot, right? Now, for folks who may be in a similar situation in whatever their businesses are, right, where you've kind of capped out on what you can do in your original idea, original product, original business, right, and you're looking for maybe an adjacent to go into, etc. What were those things that you had in mind in terms of, okay, maybe exploring a different sort of a business?
So one should always keep innovating, start looking at something newer, different, should have their own niche. I think that's the best way to find it. As I said, when we were into commercial kitchen equipment business, we realized that every Tom, Dick and Harry was doing that. So much so that even some of my employees who were my workers that time, my foremen, in the evenings probably they were running their own factories. And so it was turning very, very competitive, and people were only talking about prices. Nobody would talk about value. Nobody would talk about service. Nobody would talk about value engineering. So that is the time, as I said. So we thought we should find a niche, and we were lucky. Multiplexes were just starting up. We immediately grabbed onto it. And right. I'm one of those persons who, if find an opportunity, would always clip on. I mean, I would never leave, no matter what it is. Try it later, see it later whether it works or no, but pick onto it. Yeah.
Right. That's the classic founders or entrepreneurs mindset, right? I mean, you find an idea worth solving and you persevere.
Absolutely.
But, if I look at the Horeca business versus, let's say, the CPG business, now these two businesses are kind of different, right, in the way they operate and so on. So what have you realized from kind of pivoting from, one model to another?
So it was kind of easy for me, because I was dealing with those kind of entities who were already in the business. So the basic core game we understood. When we pivoted, it taught me the other side of the business, which was more like consumer preferences, digital marketing, optimization of digital marketing campaigns and stuff like this. But I think it was pretty easy for us to pivot and go on to this level. And as I said, the consumers were kind of the same. So we did not have any challenges. It was easy to navigate for us.
Right. So here, I think I have to clarify that you've almost pivoted twice, right? I mean, first, Horeca, where you're selling kitchen equipment, then to sort of a B2B setup, and then to D2C right now.
Absolutely.
Right?
I would say so.
People spend one lifetime trying to manage one, right? You've done two in this last 30 years or so, right? A lot of us are popcorn fans. It's unimaginable for people to maybe watch a movie, even at home, perhaps without, a can or jar of popcorn, right? So can you explain the popcorn business to us? I know that's about 30 plus years of your work, which I'm trying to help, trying to summarize in a few minutes. But if you could broadly explain the popcorn business.
So popcorn business is very, very simple. Popcorn business is popcorns which have already been popped. They're seasoned, savored, and then serviced. Okay. So the only thing is that they come in different formats. You could probably buy them in a bag, in a cup, in a tub, in a tin, or in a gift box.
Right.
But it's basically popped kernels, which could be either in a form of a butterfly, which traditionally makes to more like a savory kind of servings, or mushroom, which then creates a kind of a gourmet, sweet kind of product, which is more like caramel, blueberry, and stuff like this. So these two kind of stuff packed in different formats, and you could consume it. So that simple is a popcorn business, yeah.
Right. I mean, you have 50 plus flavors, right? I mean, including, of course, the classic hits like, let's say, caramel and cheese and whatnot, but also with that, things like gold, for example, right? So how do you think about SKUs? 50 seems like a lot. I mean, it must be, you must be coming up with new flavors every few months.
So India, there is no brainer. People come to you, they tell you, do this, create this, do this for me. We end up doing it. But needless to say, when you're going into an FMCG format, there is always an 80-20 game. So, our 80% of sale comes from those typical 20% of the product. And the balance 20% of the sale comes from the 80% of the product.
Right.
So, if I were to look at my top selling products, so they are ultimately only 20%. So there's stuff like sea salt caramel, cheesy sriracha, cherry cheese, crunchy lychee, which Anupam really liked it. I mean, if you saw him, he said, "Phod diya aapne."
Right.
So, these are some of my top selling products. As I said, 20% gives me 80%. And the balance is basically to service my client. And these are custom curated. This gold was a very, very different thing. Some gentleman walked into my office with his, event person, and they said, "Oh, look, he's a Malayali and Malayali loves gold. So how about creating this?" So that sounded exciting to me. And
right.
being a, food entrepreneur,
right.
I said, why not? So we tried it. It worked. And it was fabulous.
But how do you think about like the financial viability of some of these things, right? Because oftentimes, even on Shark Tank, right? I mean, they say that, hey, limit your SKUs, don't keep adding things, right? Figure an 80-20 again, like you said, right? And focus on the 80% rather than, adding new things, right? So how do you decide when and how to add an SKU?
Great question. Basically, since our products have been a great pull in the market, we have honestly not introduced even a single product in last 2 years.
Okay.
However, after coming on to Shark Tank, and since people have experienced it, they've loved it, I think it's the right time in the curve to come up with newer products. So there are some new products on the way. We are looking at it. And we will definitely come in. But I would like to mention here that my old, I won't say old, my regular popcorn variety which is available are so loved by people that if they are not available or go out of stock, we start getting calls in the office on different numbers. Hey, when is it coming back? Where can I buy it? Is there another source to buy it?
Right.
So that is the kind of experience people have had with us.
Right. So you pivoted to this business because, the previous one was getting really competitive, right? But then when I look at popcorn as such, right? I mean, it is kind of a commodity, right? I mean, it's not something where, there are multiple other brands as well. So how are you thinking about a moat as such for this business? Of course, one moat is the fact that, you've been in this business, for as long as you have, right? I mean, the popcorn man of India. That is one thing. But otherwise, off the shelf, what is it that you are bringing, that is kind of like a clear differentiator?
So the biggest differentiator, of course, the quality of the products we've been using. I mean, if you look at our typical popcorn kernel, we use a large kernel, which is, if I'm not mistaken, closer to an inch, which people haven't even seen it. Then the kind of coatings we do on top of it are a real product. When I'm saying caramel, it's the real caramel sauce. When I'm saying it's cheese, it's real cheese. So we are using quality ingredients which deliver fabulous taste. And what we are keeping up is with, we are maintaining some of the international flavors which are not even existing in India. I mean, though people say that these kind of flavors are available, but they're technically not the same flavor. If you try our product vis-a-vis other products, you'll see phenomenal difference. And you saw that on a Shark Tank also when I served them. Everybody was like, wow, where did you get this from? How did you break it?
Right. So the product is a key differentiator.
Absolutely, product. I mean, product speaks in itself.
Right. Yeah, I think that's relevant in more ways than one, right? And not just for food, which is where it's so apparent. Let's say, I mean, I'm from the software world, right? Even there too, right? Nothing beats a great software user experience.
Exactly.
Right. And that tends to become a habit as well, right? In terms of consumption and whatnot. Yeah. So, but the other thing is also building a brand, right? I mean, you also have to manage perceptions like, let's say, popcorns are for movies, right? So if I'm not going to the theater, then I don't need popcorn, right? How do you sort of get popcorns from the theater into people's living rooms, right? And other aspects of the brand itself, let's say in terms of the flavors or the quality of the ingredients and so on. So how do you package all of this and communicate a brand? Here I'm asking from the perspective of, let's say, a lay person, right, who is perhaps interested in starting a brand of their own, right, and they have, let's say, a decent quality product like yourself. If they have to communicate the brand, right, I mean, what would you advise to them?
So what we simply did was, making a great business is basically transforming business ideas from one location to another, one geography to another, one place to another, or an entrepreneur always find a gap, when he's seeing across, where is a gap, and he tries and fulfill. Now, what I was seeing was that this product is a pretty popular product within the cinemas. However, it's not available outside the cinemas. Even if it's available, the kind of quality
is not great.
And the kind of experience and the kind of variety is not there. And Indians love variety. So all I did was I simply picked up a typical cinema concessions out of the cinemas into the malls where we had high footfall. So for me, it was very simple. Picking up a piece from one place to another place, and it started going. Now, taking this from here to home was, by the grace of God, when COVID hit, OTT became immensely popular. People were watching movies, they were watching games. So we thought, why not? So my DIY kits were actually, introduced during the COVID times. So we immediately created a box and we started putting up on the marketplaces, and we saw the traction, and we are there at homes. But what we do differently is, we don't give people a microwave popcorn or a cooker popcorn. Because there you become very limited again, like you have one quality kernel, one kind of taste and flavor. You pop it in a regular way, and then. So what we do, we've done a little more engaging, We said, okay, here's the box. Comes with 6 different flavors. We give you the same tub what you experience in the cinemas. You make it the way you want it. So you pop either in microwave or in cooker. You could use your oil. You could use coconut oil, which is a fabulous oil for popcorns. You could use olive oil, which people perceive it to be much healthier. You could use truffle oil. You could do it the way you want it. And in a family of 4 or 5, you could use whatever seasoning you want.
Right.
And that is what has actually given us a big business out of this segment. Engaging a customer at home, sitting at their homes, has really done well for us.
Right. Do you also see that customer preferences have shifted over the last 20-something years, right? Because I think I'm old enough to sort of be like the in-between generation, I would say, right? While there was one generation which was kind of conservative, even though coming out of liberalization, and they wanted to spend, but they didn't quite, and there were options were limited, etc. Today, I mean, the Gen Z or the millennial generation, right? I mean, they are open to spending on new items, on novelty, right? So how have you seen consumer preferences shift?
You said it all. Honestly, the Gen Z doesn't blink once they see a new product. I mean, that's been my experience. They just want to try it immediately, right away, and even put the feedback on the social media. So within minutes, they buy it. Within minutes, they consume it. And within minutes, they let people know what it is. And then that gets into a viral state.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of state we are living in right now.
Yeah, sometimes.
And the Gen Z is very, very adventurous.
Yeah.
Mind you, I mean, they're very, very adventurous.
Yeah.
That way. Yeah.
Yes, sometimes I just figure, if you were to kind of explain some of this behavior to someone, let's say, who's been in a capsule and just woken up from a coma or whatever last 20 years, that people are taking photographs of their food and putting it up for everyone to see.
You
right?
won't believe that. I mean, I face this very, very often. I have a certain set of people living in the US, which they left India in the 70s. When they come back, they still think samosas are at 2 rupees a piece. However, it's at 20 rupees in Delhi. So I very well resonate with you. Yeah.
Yeah. One aspect of growing the business is also the whole franchising. Right. So how are you thinking about franchising? You have maybe about 5-6 of your own cell-phone outlets.
So we have 10 stores, to be honest, and they are spanned all over India. They're standalone stores. But what we are doing right now is we going back onto the drawing board and we're looking at it and redoing the policies for franchising.
Right.
But
what are some do's and don'ts in terms of?
We are a very simple practice kind of a franchise. What we do is we take a typical sign-up fee, which is pretty nominal depending upon the area and the market size. We do not charge a royalty. So whatever you earn it for yourself. The only commitment we want from you is buy the supplies from us because we want to keep up with that quality of product. And then we have our own training managers and operation managers who come on site consistently every 3 to 6 months and keep telling you that, this is right, this is not way to do it. Let's improve this a little better. So that's what we do. Right. And to tell you very honestly, Shark Tank has bought me queries from all over the world, from the US to Australia to Middle East to Africa. So that's the kind of queries we've got. So I'm very, very excited, yes.
Nice. I mean, would love to see an Indian product
going abroad,
right? Fantastic.
You're right.
So I'd love for you to give us some advice on, building a sustainable business, right? I mean, you've been at it for 3+ decades and, your experience over the last, let's say, 3-4 years running a different sort of a business as well. So for young people looking to start out, in the business world, etc., what are some 2 or 3 things they should do?
Wow, that's a tough one again. So the way I look at it is that you have to have a focused approach. Never lose sight of what you've decided. Continue to keep working on it. Focused approach is one. Keep innovating is another one. Hire the best talent. Look for the best people in the industry. Be ethical. Be transparent. You have to have a financial prudence. You have to spend very, very careful. Just don't blow it up.
Somehow that last part is has gone out of fashion for a bit, right?
Yeah. I've seen people, having it and blown. So, these are some of the points you should consider when you're doing a business of your own with your own money and even with a VC money. Because I think once you have these pointers straightened off, I'm sure you will be able to create a good product and it'll sell well. So you'll get good sales, yeah.
So thought experiment, right? I mean, if you were a young person right now, let's say coming out of college, 22, 23, and you had to start a business, what sector would you start a business in?
I am very adventurous. I have a list of 10 ideas right now, which I can shoot right now and create companies, honestly speaking.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the world has sort of opened up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many opportunities in every space, whichever way you look
Well, there
at
are
it.
so many gaps today, people haven't realized. And once you start filling in those gaps, you have a successful business coming up.
Right. All right. So before we close the conversation, any books or podcasts or any other resources that you would suggest to our audience?
Oh, yes, certainly. So I am not a big reader, but I started reading during COVID and post-COVID. And so some of the books which I found it very, very interesting, and I would definitely recommend, especially on your podcast, is one, The E-Myth.
Okay.
That's the best book for an entrepreneur to get into a business. The second book I would recommend is The One Thing. Because I've seen people doing multiple things at the same time. And in today's time, less is more. Specific is terrific. So that's the second book I would recommend. The third book I would recommend is Profit First. We have been bought in a British era times where we have been working on the conventional way of accounting, where I've seen people only focusing on sales, numbers, growing numbers, adding numbers, improving sales, but nobody talks about profits. Nobody talks about taking profit out of the business. You see, what actually an entrepreneur should be talking about today is doing a decent number with a phenomenal amount of gross profit, cover his expenses, and take a net profit out of the company so that he can take care of his expenses. So, Profit First is another very, very good book. And the last book I would recommend is 12 Weeks in a Year. That's another good book. So these 4 books must for a new startup guy or a girl.
Yeah. So on the topic of profits, right? I mean, we're seeing a bit of a correction right now, but it went a little crazy, right? I mean, when you look at 2020, 2021, people raised a boatload of money and spent a ton again, lost money hand over fist, right? And again, profit seems to be back in fashion right now.
Yes. You got to focus on profits. I mean, you can't survive, honestly.
Yeah.
Whether it's your world or the VC world.
Right.
Profit first is profit first.
Absolutely.
You got to take it.
That's the only sustainable way of running a business.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's the only way.
Super. All right, sir. Thank you so much for making the time. Really appreciate it. And I think, people have got a glimpse of, what it takes to build a sustainable business over a long period of time, manage all these pivots and whatnot. And I hope that the next time you guys sample, a cup or a jar of popcorn, you will think of Mr. Suri and also Popcorn and Company.
Has to be Popcorn and Company. Thank you for calling me. It was an interesting conversation. Sure.
Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of the Startup Operator Podcast. I'll see you on another episode shortly.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Super.